What is JSTOR? So this is helpful just to know that JSTOR stands for Journal Storage. It's been around since 1995. And the original intent of JSTOR was to clear shelf space in libraries. So with all these old copies of academic journals sitting around, taking up shelf space, with the ability to digitize and upload those to the internet, JSTOR came along, provided that service, and that helped clear up shelf space. So it's helpful to remember that was the original intent of JSTOR, was not to publish new articles, but to digitize and upload old articles, so to speak. So whether that was, 10 years or 100 years, however long those copies have been sitting on the shelf, that was the original intent of JSTOR. And that JSTOR has changed in the 25 years since then, 26 years, but some of that mission still kind of trickles down to today. So we'll see that as we go along. JSTOR, at least anecdotally, those of us here in the library, we think it's the most popular database with students. And I think it's because JSTOR keeps it very simple. Just two options. You have regular vanilla flavor JSTOR, and then JSTOR actually has a database called Global Plants, as funny as it sounds. But those are the only two options. Now, with that being said, there's different collections that you can add to JSTOR, but they all fall under the JSTOR umbrella, and it's just the one database, whereas other vendors have multiple different options. ProQuest and EBSCO, ProQuest has 80 plus different options. JSTOR is just these two.
All right.
And it's helpful to know about the moving wall embargo. So there's a gap sometimes between the journals that have been published and what's available through JSTOR. So usually 3 to 5 years, sometimes up to 10 years. Journals, as they're published, they don't automatically become available on JSTOR. Sometimes they do. It just all depends on the agreement that has been negotiated between JSTOR and the journal. But oftentimes you'll see this embargo in place as you're searching through, where if it's an article that was published in 2020, it may not be accessible to us yet. And the wall just moves up as we move into a new year, the wall moves up. That's why it's called the moving wall embargo. And just some examples. So the Journal for Early Modern Cultural Studies has a 3-year embargo. So it doesn't include 2021, meaning that the 3 years would be 2017 through 2020. So it's actually 3 years plus the first half of 2021. That's not available. Anything before 2017, back to the origin of the journal in 2001, is available. Mathematica Scandinavica, 1953 through 2015 is available, but they have a 5-year embargo, so anything since 2015 is not available. And then Masurgia, 1994 through 2010, and they have a 10-year embargo, which is rare, but 10-year embargo, meaning that nothing that we have through JSTOR will be in the past 10 plus years for this journal. So that can kind of sometimes affect your decision making as you're searching for articles. Doesn't mean we won't have it in different databases. JSTOR is a large database that has access to many things, but by no account does it have access to everything. So some of those journals are in different databases, and they have negotiated different agreements with those databases, and they'll have current access to those databases. So to access JSTOR, we're here at the library homepage. Scroll down, Resources and Services, opens up a new page. Have lots of different options. What we want is the Scholarly Articles tab. Select a database. So these are the popular databases. JSTOR is one of the popular databases, and in our drop-down menu we have JSTOR. So JSTOR selected, and hit go. And this is the home page of JSTOR with their basic search. Before I go actually do a search, I'm going to go to the browse, and you can browse by, there's a number of different options you can browse here. I'll browse by subject. This might help you focus in a little bit. And so different subjects, a number of different subject areas. I'll do finance. And here's 29 finance journals in JSTOR if you're interested in finance. And then now you can search within finance. So this can be helpful, you know, if you're overwhelmed by the basic search, you're finding too many results, you can just kind of zero in on the one subject area that you're looking for. That's under Browse. But I'm going to go back to the home page and just do a basic search here. And so there's a concept in the library where I'll call information literacy, outside the library world as well, but we're really interested in it here in the library world. And so if I just type in the term information literacy, I have about 160,000 results. And that comes from, so JSTOR pulls from academic journals, but they also have book chapters, sometimes entire books, research reports, and what they call primary sources, so serials, documents, different kind of things that you can sort through. Normally we'd be coming here for the journal articles, but if you're looking for something else, it has that as well. You can kind of the date range selector here, you can choose the range of results that you want to look at. So if we wanted to choose, maybe we want to see just results from the last 10 years, we could put 2011 through 2021, and we could update that if we wanted to do that. So if you're only looking for recent research, you can do that. We would just apply those terms. And then we saw the subject categories. So now on the results page, we have the subject categories again. We can scroll through. And if we're just information literacy in regards to engineering, we could check that box. And we could search just in that subject area. At the bottom, so access type, there's all content and then content I can access, which that's the option we're on now. I can click all content. We'll take a look at this in a second. But just know that because JSTOR is one overarching database, I mentioned there are various collections that go into JSTOR. We don't have access to everything that JSTOR publishes. So we choose what we subscribe to, and it's a good deal, but we don't have access to everything. So we'll take a look at that in a second and explain a little bit more about that. But that is an option at the bottom of our results. What I'm going to do, actually, before I look at an article, so one kind of librarian tip is that when you're database searching and you have a phrase, so in this case, information literacy, put the phrase in quotation marks. That will narrow your search results down to just that phrase. So before, we were going to find articles that mention the word information, mention the word literacy, somewhere in the same article, but it wasn't talking about the concept that we're looking for. So by putting it in quotation marks, we're looking for that exact phrase, which will point to the concept that we're looking for. So quotation marks around information literacy, I search, and now I'm at 3,300 results. So just a fraction of what we had before. So you can imagine that all of those results that have been eliminated were probably junk results that weren't going to be relevant to our searching anyway. So we have our 3,000 plus results. I'll try to zoom out a little bit if I can. Hopefully we'll see more of the screen. And usually I don't accept cookies, but I'm trying to accept their cookies and it just keeps coming back. Take a look at a result. So the second result here, information literacy collaboration. This is what you'll see for most articles. It brings you here to a landing page, a little bit more information about the article. So the title, the authors, the information where it was published, so the name of the journal, volume, number, the date, 2003. And then most importantly, we actually have the article here. Their setup is they show you the page. You can hit these arrows to scroll through or download the PDF. You can download the PDF, and if you agree to their terms, you have a PDF copy of the article. In this case, it's just a short 3-page article, not including the cover page. Something that's helpful, so each database is a little bit different and they try to offer some helpful features if they can. So here's view 20 search matches. So sometimes if there's a term, maybe it shows up once there's a 30-page article and the term shows up once. View the search matches. This shows you the pages of the article and how many times your term will show up on those pages. So page 52 has 8 results. So this, our term shows up a number of different times on each page. That won't always be the case, and if there's, one really esoteric term that you're looking for, maybe it just shows up once in your article. This will help you find the page, so you don't have to read the entire article. You can scan through and see if it's useful before you actually commit to reading the entire article.
Is this a good time to ask a question?
Absolutely.
I have students submit bibliographies that include a stable URL I see in the bottom left corner.
Mm-hmm.
If I were to try to reconstruct and go find the article they're talking about without the other information, that's all they give me, I've had occasions where it did not give me access to this same article.
Okay.
I don't know what that means, a stable URL. Does that mean I should be able to come right to this from their bibliography if I just enter that?
Yes.
Huh.
So I don't know where the disconnect would be. If they don't copy the entire URL, that would create a problem. If they leave off any of the numbers. It also may be if you yourself are not logged into the databases, it may give you an error message.
Oh, that could be it.
That's just the first, one of the first things that pops to my mind.
That could be it.
I mean, the stable URL should work. So
all right.
If it doesn't, it could be another technical problem that's happening behind the scenes. But I did want to mention that because, especially for faculty members, if you were to post this article in Scholar, for instance, the temptation may be to just download the PDF and post the PDF, which works just fine. I would argue that it's better for the library anyway. I don't know about better for the faculty members. It's better for the library if you post the link, and that way the students will click on the link and go to the databases, and that gives us the usage statistics to know that that database is being used. So if we don't see that a database is being used, it's in danger of getting cut. So we're always reevaluating our databases, and if a database is not being used, it's possible that we may not subscribe to it in the future. So having that link, the stable URL in this case, as long as it works, if it links them to the database, then that shows up as a hit for our database, and we know that it's getting used. So great. I would just arguing for that.
All right.
So you can also cite. This isn't always, these are automated citations, so you have to kind of take these with a grain of salt. But they do offer some of the popular citation formats just kind of automatically generated here. And if you use some of the other software reference tools, you can export to those tools as well. So students, I often tell them about this, but I always make sure to kind of stress that it's computer generated. I've seen mistakes before, so the citations aren't always perfect. If you're going to use them in your paper, you have to double check them. Okay, so now with that being said, I chose this article. This would trip up some students. This is not necessarily a scholarly peer-reviewed article. This may show up in a scholarly peer-reviewed journal, but this looks like a commentary article that was written. It's a very short article, and students especially would see this, and it's in JSTOR. They think, oh wow, this is a research article. It's a short research article, but I'll use this in my paper, and and then they'll get docked some points because it's not actually a research article. This is just a commentary that showed up in one of the library journals. So those are sprinkled in JSTOR. It comes from a peer-reviewed journal, but it's not actually a peer-reviewed research article.
Okay.
Okay, so we have some book chapters mixed in. Let's go up here. I'm gonna just filter it down just to journals. But just, knowing that there are some book chapters mixed into our results, if that's what you're looking for, there are those. Just take a look at another article here. This one's a little bit longer. So you can see this time we have 120 search matches within our article, so a 28-page article. And there's ways to share. So I don't take advantage of these, but if you want to share the article or save it, you can create an account. I don't often do this. I would use a different service to save it, but you can save the article to your account. Some of the other databases actually let you save your searches, which I think that's useful, and maybe even create an alert for your search. I don't think JSTOR does that. I was looking around the other day. I couldn't find an option to do that. So I don't think you have the ability to save a search that you do that you want to come back to in the future. But it would be helpful if they added that feature. I am going to go to, under search, there's advanced search. So far, we've just done a basic search. I'm going to do advanced search, where you have multiple search boxes. It's the databases, they kind of predate Google, and sometimes it works better if you break up your search terms into the different search boxes. We're all tempted to just throw everything in one box, hit search, and see what comes up. And that often works for some of the databases. But some of them still are a little bit hung up in the 90s, and you have to kind of break down your terms into the different search boxes. And not to mention that you can add these other kind of selectors in and options to your search to kind of refine your search further. But I'm going to do, in this case, information literacy. I'm going to stay on that topic. And this time I'm going to add the word teenager. I could add additional search boxes if I wanted to. Sometimes I might have 3 or 4 terms in my search, but I would submit that. So I'm looking for information literacy and articles that also mention the word teenager, because I'm going to focus on that research.
Okay.
And this time we have 235 results. So a much smaller, even from what we had before, a much smaller set of results. Now, we can make this a little bit more complex, because we can imagine, okay, if anybody is doing research in this area, maybe they use the word teenager, but you can also think, okay, maybe they use the word adolescent. I don't know, it's possible. So I'm just going to construct it up here in the search box, actually. I'm going to add in the parentheses there, I'm going to add teenager or, and I put or in capital letters that lets JSTOR know that it's not just part of the search, this is actually one of my selectors, or adolescent. So now I'm looking for articles that mention information literacy and teenager or adolescent. So with the parentheses in there, it kind of helps JSTOR understand the order of operations that we're using. But I hit search, and now I'm at 574 results. So I basically doubled my results, because now I have other articles that mention the word adolescent. So somewhere, some researchers are using that term instead of the word teenager, or maybe it means slightly different things depending on their field. So you can construct these searches, and they can get pretty complex. I'm going to just kind of simplify it here a little bit, and I'm going to add another term here, not, and then the word library. So not is another Boolean operator, as they're called. And what that's going to do is, of the articles that we have, the pool of articles that we have now, it's going to eliminate any articles that mention the word library. Let's say, information literacy, it's a big concept in the library world, but it stretches beyond the library. And we want to focus it maybe, in information literacy in the classroom. So I hit search for that. And now my set of results has shrunk again. So I'm at 164 results, because I eliminated a number of articles that mentioned the word library. A few hundred that mention the word library. So you have and or not, and it will depend on what you're looking for, how you want to use those operators. But I just did it here in the search box, but they're also under advanced search. When you're doing that, you can choose or not. Near, you get a little bit trickier. You have a word, you have 2 words, and you would use near 5, 10, or 25, and that would mean the 2 words, how close they are in the article. Are they 5 words apart? Are they 10 words? And with the idea being that the closer they are, they're related. But I think that's a rarely used option. So back to our search one more time. And this time I'm going to do information literacy again. It's a basic search. Filter it to journals. I'm going to change this where it says access type, but we're going to come back to it. So we're going to come back to it now where it says all content. I'm going to change that, meaning that all content, there are some articles in JSTOR that before they were kind of shielded from our view. Now we're going to see them. JSTOR has the article in their larger database, but we at CNU do not subscribe to that section of JSTOR where the article resides. So there aren't any examples here in the first page, so I have to scroll down and go to the second page, I believe, before we actually get to an example.
We're looking at interlibrary loan then?
Well, our first step before that would be Journal Finder.
Ah, okay.
And then interlibrary loan. So actually, I don't see it here either. Thought it was going to show up on, maybe it's on page 3. Let's take a look on page 3. Well, it was here when I tried it out before. And the reason I can do this, I can just scroll through and all of these say download PDF, and the one I'm looking for, that option would be grayed out. And so far it's all here, which that's a good sign that we have access to everything.
Right.
But for our example purposes, it's not working. Okay, well, I don't want to give you motion sickness with the scrolling. There's very few options, I mean, very few articles in JSTOR that we don't have access to, but the few that we do, JSTOR gives you an option to pay for it on the page. And I just wanted to make sure I stress to you, don't pay for it. Because more often than not, it will be available in a different database. And if it's not available in a different database, what you mentioned, interlibrary loan, is always an option as well. So, and the article I found earlier was $14. So, it's not going to make or break anybody, but if you do that multiple times, you're just wasting your money. So I don't want to waste $14. I don't want to waste $100, whatever it is. If it's just, a few clicks away in a different database, then by all means, please do not pay for it. So I cannot find that example now, but there are a few in there, and that's only when you click on all content, because that shows everything that you will see those. And it would just be where it says download PDF, it would be grayed out. Everything else would look similar, but that would be grayed out, and you would click on it and you wouldn't actually be able to read the article.
All right.
Okay, so one other kind of librarian tip here. Just another thing that you can do. We're going to do, let's say pretend we're in the MAT program, and we have curriculum and let's say geology. We're working on a geology curriculum. We have 15,000 results. But you can imagine that there's some results that have the word geologist or something, geological,
right.
And it mentions that word. What you can do is you can go back to, you can trim the word geology back. Let's just, in this case, let's just take the Y off, and you can add an asterisk at the end of the word. So a star, an asterisk, add that at the end of the word. And now that's going to search all of the possible endings for the root that we have. So geology, but also geologist, geological, anything else. And what we should see is we have more results. So we went from 15,000 results to 21,000 results, because now we have more terms that are included in our search. So not often will you use that trick, but when you need it, that's a handy thing that you can do that just saves you, instead of doing 3 or 4 different searches, now we just did all those searches at once.